everybody.
Good evening.
Everybody have a good afternoon?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it's been lost, but I'll just put it this way, the Colts are finally coming back down. You know, when your quarterback's hurt, it's hard to win when your quarterback's hurt. But we'll see what happens. The season's not over yet, right? All right. Did you notice behind me, it says, somebody's watching. Okay? Somebody just said always, right? Okay, so what I want us to do is turn to 1 Peter chapter 2. And what I want us to do here is we're gonna read just through verse 11 and 12 for right now, okay, of this chapter. All right, listen to what it says. It says, "Beloved, I urge you as foreigners and strangers to abstain from fleshly lusts which wage war against the soul. Keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles, so that in the thing in which you slander you as evildoers, they may, because of your good deeds, as they observe them, glorify God on the day of visitation." Okay, so as we look at this, he begins with here, and really the whole chapter, all the way down to the end of this chapter, he talks about being submissive. Okay? If you were to hear that word submissive, what are some thoughts that might come to your mind when you hear the word submissive? What do you think? I mean, how many of you say, "Man, I want my dog to be submissive. I want my horse to be submissive. I want it to follow me what I want to do"? What exactly do we mean when we say that? Obedient? What did you say, Dave?
It's a servant.
A servant? Okay, what else?
You're in the will of somebody else.
The will of somebody else. What did you say, Terry?
Under someone else's control.
Under someone's control, okay? Because, throughout the scriptures, we find this teaching. We find being submissive to God, right? Being submissive to, even to, in some cases, one another, right? So as we look at this, I want us to understand here from 1 Peter chapter 2 to chapter 3, Peter is really emphasizing this whole idea of being submissive as believers. Okay? Now, it's interesting here because when we think of being submissive in a world in which nobody wants to be submissive to anybody or anything, it can almost come across as a bad thing. Okay? If I'm submissive to you, then I can't live how I want to live my life, and vice versa. And so as we look at this here, and I want us to see this, it's very, very important that we understand that this is a submissiveness to God. Okay? It's probably close now to 20 years ago, I would say this happened. Jennifer and I we were at her mom and dad's house, and our nephew was there, and he was playing baseball, loved to play baseball. And Steve, you're going to get a laugh out of this one when I say it, okay? All right, he will, I promise you, he will. My nephew said he was a Cubs fan and a Cardinals fan at the same time. See, I told you you'd get a kick out of that.
Possible.
Okay, that's exactly what I told him. Not possible, right? Because you either one or the other, but not both. Okay, why do I share that with you? Because many times we want to say we're for God when it's convenient, and we're not for God when it's not convenient. Okay? But you can't be both. This is what Peter's saying. You can't be both, Christian. You can't be. And notice what he says there. I want you to see something here, that first paragraph there. Because we need to be submissive in the life as a believer, of a citizen of heaven. We need to be submissive as a worker. And we need to also be submissive in a marriage relationship. And we need to be submissive as a member of a Christian assembly or a Christian church. Okay? So, when we look at this, and I wrote this down here, okay, for you to see. Remember, again, everything on the screen's on your paper, but I'm hoping you can see this. Submission does not mean slavery or subjugation, but simply the recognition of God's authority in our lives. Okay, that's all it means. And this is how, when you look at this, So let's look at the church, for instance. Okay? In a church, who are we supposed to be submissive to first? God. Right? And if you and I are submissive to God in our church, then everything else that we do will be based upon that submission to God. So as we think about it as a Christian, okay, my submission is again to God. What I do, what you do as a Christian would be based upon our submission to Him, what He wants us to do, who He wants us to become. And when it comes to our marriages, women are not supposed to be telling the husband what to do. I know people don't like to hear that, but that is not biblical at all. And you will find that most people, when they fight in their marriage relationships, because the woman wants to usurp her authority over her husband. And that is not how it's supposed to be. Okay, it is not. And you will find that that is usually what happens in marriages. They end up being in divorce because the woman wants to be the one in charge. Okay? And I'm just sharing this with you. It's important to understand. Because if we use the word submission the way we do right here, right? Then that means that it is not in a slavery way, right? It's in a loving way. It's an agreement way. And that we have to remember here is that, but that also means though that the husband's not supposed to be a jerk towards his wife either. Okay, so we have to understand that too. There is a balance that comes in play there. However, God didn't ever intend for the woman to rule over her husband. It was to be the husband over his wife. Okay? That is how God intended for it, and that is why marriages don't work so much in our country anymore, because that's not what people are taught, and that's not what people want. And that's also, by the way, why we fight in churches, because we don't want to submit to proper authorities under what God wants us to be. Okay? The same thing happens. But again, the key is understanding whose authority we sit under, right? And whose is that? God's authority. That's what's so important to remember that. Okay, so on your paper here, we need to remember here is that God has put the government over us, whether we like our government or don't like our government, right? For the same reason. I already shared there a little bit about in the home, in the church, and so since God made everything, wouldn't you agree that God made everything? Okay. Since God made everything, doesn't He have the authority or the right and tell us how we should run those things? He does. He made them, right? And it's interesting because nowhere does it say the creation is supposed to tell the Creator what to do. Okay? But yet sometimes that's what we do. So we talked a little bit about this in my Sunday school class this morning. What was the real sin in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve? What was the real sin? Okay?
They went against God's authority.
Right,
They made themselves gods.
Right, they went against God's authority and wanted to be like God, make themselves above God. And so how much did God put up with that? Not at all, right? He immediately said, we're done, cut this off, I'm the authority. So as we look at this, I want us to understand here that God wants each of us to exercise authority. Okay? If you are a Christian, should you not know more about the Bible than a non-Christian? You should. Thusly, since you should you not be, for lack of better terminology, the world doesn't understand, the authority on what the Scriptures teach? Remember, making you the authority doesn't mean you're an expert. It simply means that you know more about the Scripture than that person who doesn't. Okay? So look at this. It says, but before we can exercise authority, we must be under authority. Okay? Remember, if we don't ever sit under the authority of God, we'll never have the authority that we need to have in our lives, in our churches, and in our society. Okay? Nobody wants to sit under authority in society, am I right? And we usually say this, no one's going to tell me what to do. I'll live how I want to, right? That is literally shaking our fist at an authority in our life. So here we see this, and I want you to see something. Why is this such a big deal, do you think? What is the big deal that we as Christians should live under the authority of God? What's the big deal? What is it? Okay? Well, what does it say? Verses 11 and 12. the verses 11 and 12 tell us what the big deal is. Okay? It tells us that we're strangers. Since we're foreigners and we're strangers, we're supposed to abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul. We're to keep our behavior excellent among the Gentiles, so that in things in which they slander you as evildoers, they may, because of your good deeds, as they observe him in them, glorify God on the day of visitation. So, why is it, and what is the first thing? I want to back up, I guess. There's 4 things that we're going to talk about. Not tonight, we'll start with just one. There'll be 3 more. Of why it is, actually there's 3, not 4 more, 3 more. Why it's important for us to submit under the authority of God. Okay? And so the first thing there I just read to you is the first reason why we must submit to the authority of God. Okay? All right. So first of all, we have to understand here that as Christians, we must sit under the authority for the sake of others. Okay, for the sake of others. All right. So, what did Satan offer Adam and Eve? He offered them freedom without authority. Be like what you want to be, live how you want to live, do what you want to do. No big deal. Thank goodness God said what? Not how it works. Right? So, we need to remember here that if you read about the prodigal son in the New Testament, okay, what did the prodigal son do? Let's go to the very beginning of it. You know the story. You have to go word for word here. Well, what did he do? Yeah. He said, give me what's rightfully mine. Right? Then what did he do? Yeah, blew it all, spent it all. Riotous living, whatever version of the Bible we have, it wasn't good. Whatever it was, he spent it on, right? Okay? So he spent it all. He did everything that he wanted to do, lived how he wanted to do. He ended up where? Do you remember? Yeah, but the fact he was right. He was eating the husks and doing all these things. So ultimately, again, he thought true freedom came by being able to live how he wants to. Okay? But true freedom didn't come from living how he wants to. How do we know true freedom did not come to the prodigal son? How do we know it didn't? Where was he at, guys? He was living in a pig pen. He thought this freedom was going to come from the money, the inheritance he got from his dad. Live how he wanted to live. And all of a sudden, he realized, oh man, I'm in trouble. And at the moment he did, remember what he did when he was in the pig pen? Remember the thought that he had? What did he say to himself?
He could be a servant to his father and be better off than what he was.
Exactly. Right, exactly. So he started to think through how he was living, what he was doing, and it took time, right? It wasn't like an immediate thing. But the moment he realized he needed to be yielded to his father, because his father loved him, cared for him, he finally realized, I need to do this. This is where I need to be. And this is something that we need to do here. So the biggest thing we need to remember here, Peter has told us again that there's 3 things that we need to do as Christians. So we're submitting to the authority and living dedicated, obedient Christian lives. Okay? This morning in our Sunday school class, one of the things that we're going through, Understanding the Bible in 30 Days. I always love that title. I think it's kind of funny, but it's a really good study. And one of the things that we do in churches is we have this tendency to forget who actually God put in place to be the authority in the church, and who was that? It's supposed to be who? The pastor. Okay? And so we have a tendency to do this. He made me mad, so I'm not going to listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Seriously, we do. Okay? And I can do his job. It's easier. Right? I promise you it's not easy. I'm not trying to do this because I'm the pastor. I'm trying to share with us, guys. We do this all the time. We try to say that my authority is more than the authority of the pastor, even though I don't have any authority. Because I wasn't officially given authority, right? But the reality is, I'm sharing this with us because how we live our life is huge for people around us. Now, it's interesting what he says here. Okay? I'm going to get into it just 1 second here. But first of all, the biggest reason we're supposed to live under God's authority is because for the lost people around us. That's the biggest reason. Okay? And so as we think about this, I want to look at this. I want us to look at this again. I want to read this to you because it's interesting. He says, first of all, you and I are to abstain from what? First thing it says, fleshly lusts. It didn't say not to have nice things in our life, right? It didn't say don't have new things in our life. It said from fleshly lusts, right? And then he says, why not? Why are we not supposed to go after those things? What's the Bible literally say? Because what does it do?
Against your soul.
If it goes against our soul, it goes against who we are. Okay? So then it goes on in verse 12. He says this. He says, keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles. Okay? So, he reminds us of this. He reminds us where our life needs to be. Guys, I want us to think about Christianity for a moment. Understand that Christianity is not a religion. Okay? It is not a religion. Christianity is a living relationship with the living God. Okay? So, when people say that they're Christian, or they go to church, those are not the same thing. All right? Because Christianity has nothing to do with organized religion. It has everything to do with our relationship with the living God. All right? So, here's what he says, though. Okay? He says, why should we live this way? Why is it we should be this way? Why is it we should have this type of behavior? Because people need to know there's something different about you that God is. But guys, if Christians go and hang out in a bar and get drunk like the world, they have absolutely no witness to the world. Zero. Zippo. None. Okay? If you and I go around and we're cussing out people all the time, we have zero witness to the Lord, to the world, to the lost world. None. Why not? Why can I say that? Say with 100%
We're
complete
just like
confidence.
they are.
What's that?
If we do exactly what they're doing.
Right. Exactly what the world is doing. And God tells us we're to be the opposite of that. Okay? The opposite of that. When I became a Christian, one of the first things I stopped doing was using bad words. Okay? I've heard people say, well, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, yes, it is. If it's not a big deal for a Christian to cuss in the world, why can't I cuss in the pulpit? Come on, why can't I? If you can go on the world cuss all the time, all you want to, why can't I cuss in the pulpit? Because you know it's wrong. That's why. We do. I mean, I would never do that, but that's exactly why we don't. That's a double standard that we place. We can do it out there, but not in here. I can do it, but the preacher can't do it. I can do it, but my Sunday school teacher can't do it. We have zero credibility with the world when we do that. If people truly are followers of Jesus Christ. Zero credibility. Okay? And this is what he's getting at here. He's saying, hey, you've got to be submissive to me, and I don't want you to do these things. And some, I've heard people say, I have rights to do certain things. You're right, we do. We do. But we also serve a God who says, I have the right to rule in your life because of my son and what he did for you on the cross. And over and over again, he says, the biggest thing we need to hear, verses 11 and 12, is because of our witness for Christ. Now, on your paper, this is written here, okay? Our love relationship to Jesus Christ ought to be a motivation enough for us to live godly lives in this godless world. Okay? Again, it is not biblical for a pastor or anybody to say, Christian, live how you want to. It is not biblical. Okay? It is not. In fact, it's the opposite of being biblical. And so that's something that I want to encourage us to think about. That eight different times in Peter's writings, he reminds us of God's love for us. Does God love us? Yes. Does God want us to live a life that we get hurt from it? No. Right? Does God want us to live a life so that people can see Him through us? Yeah, absolutely He does. And when a church or when we as Christians, we live a life consistently over and over again, just like the world did, we're only fooling ourselves. We're only fooling ourselves that we're ever going to make a difference with anybody. Because they're going to, why do I need to go to church? You talk like me, you walk like me, you act like me. I don't need to go to church for that. I can do it forever. Guys, I'm just telling you the truth here. This is what Peter's saying. Don't live that way. Okay, that's what he's saying to you. That's what he's saying to me. So, look at verse 17. Okay, of the book of 2nd. But I want us to go to 2 Peter. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 17. I want us to see something here. All right. Okay. He says this in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 17. For when we receive honor and glory from God the Father, such as a declaration, as this was made to him by the majestic glory, this is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. He says, I love my Son. I'm pleased with my Son. This is how He wants us to live our life. Now, in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 6, we're reminded that we're accepted and we're loved by God. You know, don't let anybody say that nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. Because God does. You know, God does care. God does care about this. So that's something that I want us to remember here. Now, something else I want us to understand here, guys, is this world permanent or temporary? Temporary. Okay. So since it's temporary, why do we spend so much time acting like it's permanent? What's that?
It's all we got.
It's all we got right now. Sure, that could be part of it. Okay? And because there is a lot of truth to what we see, right, versus what we hope to see, what we might see. But I'm sharing this because he writes to us, and we need to be reminded here that this is our temporary home, not a permanent one. And that's something we need to remember here. Our citizenship is not in the United States; it's in heaven as Christians. Right? It's in heaven. And so that's something that we have to remember. He told in Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 through 16. We're not going to turn there, but you can look at those if you'd like. He's reminding them that this is temporary, that we're traveling from here to there, and that they're going to that eventually we're going to have this place that we can call Rome. Eventually we're going to have this place where we're going to spend eternity with God. Now, how many of you guys have been to a foreign country? And Kentucky does not count. Okay, grab your hands again. Let me hand you this. Okay, where have you been? Places. England, Mexico,
Canada, Mexico,
South America, Brazil, right, Ed? Okay, Greece.
Belize and Honduras.
Okay. Jim, I've been to Mexico. I've been to Canada. I've been to Ecuador. Hey guys, when you go to, I'll just show you guys some pictures about my last trip to Ecuador. But there's pictures of everybody wants to take pictures when you're there. Okay, and I am almost 6'3.5" or so, 6'3", and the Ecuadorians like 4 foot nothing. No, they're about 5 foot tall, I think, something like that. And they always want pictures of it because you're so big, right? Guys, they notice when gringos are in their community. That's not a put down. That just means white people. Okay, they know when you're there. They know when you're there. They pay attention to you. They watch you. Okay. And I'm sharing this with us because I want us to think about something here. Guys, if we're not residents of this world, then we're foreigners here. Passing through. And people should notice that we're different. Okay? People should notice that this is not where we stay. And they notice if you live there, if you're from there, if you're not from there. And I want us to think about the world that we live in, right? People, we can be so mean to one another. We always want to watch what somebody else is doing. I mean, let's face it, after September 11th, when the World Trade Centers got hit, and some of you probably too little, it may not have been born when that happened. Guys, it was hard not to watch somebody from that part of the world and not see what are they thinking, what are they trying to do, right? And I'm just saying, I'm not saying it was right or wrong. It's just reality. Because we were watching, and people watch us too. They watch us too. If they're it doesn't matter. They still do. So how you live your life and how I live my life, how our church lives our life. Hopefully, when they see us, they're not going, "Wow, look at that church full of hypocrites." They accept everything that I believe that is contrary to the Bible, right? And so we have Peter saying, "Hey, you know what? You are different. You are different than all these things." Now, if you turn your paper over, Satan wants to destroy you. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Okay? He wants to destroy you. He wants to destroy our church. He wants to destroy anything to do with God. And he will do that through your actions and my actions, through our words, and we either speak or we don't speak. He will do these things. But the reality is, am I really fighting with people, or is it against what Satan's trying to do? It's what Satan's doing. Mm-hmm. Now, it can come across that you're fighting with people. But what we need to remember is we have too many people who think they know how to define words, and they want to call Christians judgmental. When you live your life, when you call somebody out for how they live their life. Guys, I want you to understand something. If you call yourself a Christian and you live like the world, you better look in the mirror. Okay? Just right now, you better look in the mirror. And try to convince yourself that you're a Christian living like one when you live like the world. Because you can't. I can't either. Because the reality is that I'm not talking about you having to be perfect. But if I claim to be a Christian and then I walk out the door and all people do is see me living the opposite life, and that I'm the definition, the very definition of a hypocrite. The very definition. And so we need to remember here that we're not fighting against each other. Okay? We're fighting against Satan trying to defeat us. Satan can't defeat us. Why not? The cross, it's empty. The tomb is empty. Now you can't defeat it. So, if we yield to these sinful appetites, whatever that might be in your life, whatever might be in my life, then we will start living like the unsaved around us and will become ineffective witnesses. Okay? I'm telling you for the 18th time tonight, you cannot live like the world, call yourself a Christian, expect to make a difference in the world for Christ. You cannot. Won't happen. Because the world will see no reason to come to Jesus Christ if we live just like they do. However, that might be in your life or in my life. So Peter is reminding us of this. Okay? On your paper, there's a quote from D.L. Moody. And he said this: "I have more trouble with D.L. Moody than with any man I know." Okay? If you know who D.L. Moody is, go look it up, okay? He hit it right on the head, didn't he? And so, when we go to war, that's a battle, isn't it, that takes place? Okay? And that is something that we need to remember here. That we are at war, but not with each other. We're at war with Satan, who wants to destroy us. But we have to let Jesus Christ live through us, because he's already defeated. Because he's already lost. He's already lost because of this. Now, what I want you to see here, this is on your paper, but it's not highlighted on your paper. Okay? First of all, again, if we yield to the sinful appetites and start living like the unsaved around us, we'll be ineffective in our witness. But most of all, we're witnesses to the lost around us. Okay? You've heard me say this, if you haven't heard it for the first time, or maybe you've heard this from somewhere else. I don't remember where I got this from. But here's the deal. The world would rather see a sermon lived than preached. Okay? They want to know that it makes a difference to us. They want to know that the Bible makes a difference to us. They want to know that it's something that's important. So we'll get to a little illustration for that in just a minute, okay? But most of all, that is something we have to understand. That the world around us is watching us. They are watching us, you guys. They're watching. And if you and I live like the world, they got no reason to come to this church or any other church. They got no reason for it. Why do I need to feel bad about how I live when you live less like I do? I don't need to go there. All right? And Peter's like, no, we have to live submissively to God. For what reason? For the lost around us. And he didn't say here, so you go beat down their doors and knock down their doors and tell them to fashion with the Bible. He says what? So they can see that God means something in my life. That I go to church because I love God. That I talk properly because I love God. That I want to help others because I love God. That's what people want to see. And anybody can be nice, right? Not the same way Christians should, but anybody can be nice. Help somebody out. So as we think about this, we need to remember here that He is the one we're serving. Now, does anybody know what a Gentile is?
Anybody that's not a Jew.
Okay. Right. Anybody who is not a Jew, but also a Gentile, that Peter's also talking about here, are those who are not Christians or unsaved. Okay? It's not meant to be a derogatory. It's not meant to be a derogatory thing, but it's meant to be. It's meant to be just to not saved. If you notice here, Peter says something in chapter 2, towards the end there, about verse 12. He says, so that in the thing in which you they slander you as evildoers, they may, because of your good deeds, as they observe them, glorify God on the day of visitation. We'll talk about day of visitation in just a minute. So, we need to remember here is that if we are going to, this is on your paper, I should have put this up here, but I did not. Actually, I guess I did. Take that back. If we're going to witness to the lost world around us, we must live honest lives. Okay? Honest lives. Okay? I want you guys to know something. I put that carport up next door at the parsonage. I hated the idea of having to shell out $600 to put it up under codes the city requires. I had to get 3 different permits. 3. Did I like the idea? Nope, hated it. But as a Christian, as a church, guess what I have to do because it's the right thing to do, because it's a witness thing to do. Pay the $600 to put the permits up. Whether I liked it or not. Okay? That's what this is talking about here. If a Christian's going to lie, why do I want to serve a God who's a liar, a lying God? Okay? Why do I want to lie to God? I have enough lying people in my life as it is. What do I need a God who's going to lie to me? The witness here is important. You know, over and over again, I keep, people say, we got to witness to people. We got to witness to people. Guys, if we're not living a godly life, we can't go up there and tell them, hey, let me tell you about Jesus who loved you and died for you, but you know what? I'm going to cuss you out next time I see you. I'll see you at the bar tomorrow. It's not going to work. Okay? I keep saying that over and over again, guys. There's too many Christians who think they should live exactly how they want to, confess Jesus Christ, and go to church like everything's perfectly fine in their life, and they're not even following God at all. They have a Bible in their head, and they walk the door of the church. There's far too many people who do that. And this is what Peter's saying. Don't do it. Trust God with these things. Okay? So, we have to remember here, and it's on your paper, that we not only need to talk about it, but our walk needs to back those things. That's what's important. We have to live those honest lives. Again, we not witness only with our lips, we must back it up with our talk, with our walk. Okay? How many of you guys can say that I love God and I'll follow Him wherever He leads, and you actually mean it? Okay? When the rubber hits the road, do you actually mean it? You might say, well, what do you mean? Well, God might say, I want you to be a missionary, wherever it might be, and you got to sell everything you own and you need to go. guys, it happens. God still speaks today the same way He did to the patriarchs. What do you tell Abram? Go. Right? And I mean, that's maybe a little bit differently from the standpoint they moved everything with them. He would have been like, hey, wait a minute, my family's all back here. My livelihood's back here. My comfortableness is back here. Right? And believe me, guys, there's a difference between doing a mission trip for a week and moving somewhere. It is completely different. I've done both. Okay? And so when we think about this, guys, make sure when we see this, that people see that we love God because of what we do, not just what we say. And this is what Peter is going to be there. All right, Peter said, our good works must back up our good words. In fact, let's go there to Matthew chapter 5 for just a moment. Okay. Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. Listen to what it says. It says, your light must shine before people in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. I think it's so easy for us to get caught up in wanting to try to keep friends. Try to have good things in life. When Jennifer and I, before we got married, one of the things that happened was we got accepted to go to Alaska before we got married. They knew we were going to get married. The job didn't start till after we got married, but we had to go to Atlanta for interviews. They put us in separate rooms, hotels, all that stuff. And we went to interviews, and I remember I was asked this question. And the question was, would you follow a directive from your employer, even if it goes against the Word of God, to keep your job? Right? You know, as a 24-year-old, roughly, somewhere around there, 23, 24-year-old, and you want a job, what are you going to say? Of course. But I can tell you guys, right now, standing here, 32 years later from that question, I would tell you, keep your job. I'm not doing anything against what God tells me to do. Okay? And I said that to him back then, too. No, I'd have to do what God wanted me to do. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. But the reality is, guys, our good works are there for one reason and one reason only. What are they? To glorify God. Yep. That's the only reason they're there. That's the only reason they're there. And if our life is never filled with good works, okay, when the day of visitation shows up, by the way, the day of visitation is not the day the Lord returns in Easter and in the book of Revelation. So please don't even think that's not what it is. This day of visitation is that day when God reaches down to that person and says, you need me. You need to come to me. You need salvation. You need me. That's the day of visitation he's talking about here. And that's something we need to remember, that this visitation, that Christ is going to come back. That one day, guys, every tongue's going to confess Jesus Christ. Did you know that? But is every tongue going to go to heaven? Okay. In fact, I think there's going to be many people who are going to try to say, hey, I should get into heaven because I was a good person. I went to church, sang in the choir. I did all the things good Christians do. And God's going to look at them and say, depart from me, for I never knew you. But boy, everybody else knew me, but the one who needed to know us didn't know us. And this is what he is getting at here. That when God comes down, a person doesn't lead a person to Christ. Did you know that? The Holy Spirit leads a person to come to know Jesus Christ. We're just a tool, if you will, a vessel that God uses to help direct a person to Jesus Christ. And that's what we remember. But he encourages his readers to bear witness to the lost by word and deed, so that one day God might visit them and save them. Do you guys realize that no matter what anybody has to say in the screwed up world that we live in, that little kids most certainly can learn right from wrong and understand right from wrong. Right? They do. And anybody who's had a child before knows exactly what I mean when I say a child tries to hide their behavior because they knew it was what? Wrong. And they have no problem showing you when they were good. Okay? And they did those things. And so let us remember just how good God is. I want to close with those stories. On the bottom of your paper it says this. Remember, people are watching us. Okay? In the summer of 1805, a number of Native American chiefs and warriors met in a council at Buffalo Creek, New York, to hear a presentation of the Christian message by Mr. Cram from the Boston Missionary Society. After the sermon, a response was given by Red Jacket, one of the leading chiefs. Among other things, the chief said, "Brother, you say that there is but one way to worship and serve the Great Spirit. If there is but one religion, why do you white people differ so much about it? Why not all agree as you can all read the book?" Their question. But then he goes on. "Brother, we are told that you have been preaching to the white people in this place. These people are our neighbors. We are acquainted with them. We will wait a little while to see what effect your preaching has upon them. If we find it does them good, makes them honest and less disposed to cheat Native Americans, we will then consider again of what you have said." That's coming from an ignorant person about the gospel. But what they weren't ignorant about is everyday life. Right? What they weren't ignorant about is how people treat each other. Guys, I want to just encourage us. We'll look at the other thing that Peter talked about as well. But the other motivation. But our first motivation means because for the sake of the lost around us. And sometimes that means we have to live a little bit of an uncomfortable life. Because, do you remember what John the Baptist said when about Jesus? What he had to do? He said, "I must decrease, he must increase." I mean, this was John the Baptist. This guy had a following, right? And there's people following him everywhere. At the Jordan River and everywhere else. He's like, "No, I got to get out of the way and let the one who makes a difference, the one who matters, let him be the one people see." That's what we need to remember. Okay, I'm going to close there. Please remember, take these papers home. If you haven't, if you want any of these other ones, I do have them on. I can print them off for you if you'd like. But please remember to come on back Wednesday night, as we're going to continue to answer the questions that I shared with you this morning. 40 questions about the Bible. We're still going to be in question 1. We're going to be in the second part of that question this next week. I promise you. I hope that you enjoyed it last week, and I hope that you'll enjoy it this week. So let's take a moment. Let's pray. Father God, I do thank you for the life you give us. I pray, Lord, that every one of us will be honest before the world, and that they see you. Lord, I pray you'll forgive us when we aren't living how we need to, how we're supposed to. But I pray, Father God, people will see you. And Lord, I ask ahead of time right now that, Lord, you'll bless our lives. That, Lord, you'll live a life that's worthy of your blessing, so that others may see you. I thank you ahead of time, Lord, for what you're going to do in all of our lives. Use us now in a way that you see fit, so others may know you. And I ask these things in your name. Amen. Please remember, next December 7th, next Sunday, we have fellowship at the church. So remember,